Today, Star Wars' venerable TIE fighter is everywhere, from billboards to adverts to cutting-edge video games. The exposure is so great that, in a sense, the iconic starfighter just fades into the background. With that in mind, it can be difficult to appreciate just how odd a thing the TIE fighter was when it first made its on-screen debut over 30 years ago. With that kind of longevity, you had to believe that the TIE fighter had some interesting stories to tell. So let's take a look at some. I'm Adam, this is What Culture Star Wars, and here are 10 things you didn't know about the Imperial TIE fighter. Number 10. The Ju-87 Stuka and elephants combine for its iconic bellow. As a symbol of the Empire's might and the film's bad guy craft, the TIE fighter needed to sound suitably menacing, and when it comes to menacing you need to look no further than the Stuka's infamous Jericho trumpet. As Joe Johnston, working on the storyboards at the time, recalls, in World War II, the super dive bombers had an artificially created siren whale created by air ducts. They didn't serve any purpose except to create this noise, which would terrify people. It was intended that the TIE should achieve the same effect. Sound designer Ben Burt found his analog in an animal not normally known for being frightening, the African elephant. Burt was a fan of the early Fox Studios film sound design, and among them was The Roots of Heaven, a story about a team trying to save elephants from extinction. Burt sampled the film's elephant screeches and slowed them down, producing the TIE fighter's signature sound. The slight hiss you hear came from a more mundane source, the sound of tires moving through water. Burt did not think the sounds would be used, but the Star Wars Brains Trust loved it, and the rest, as they say, is history. Number 9. It was partially named after a bow tie. In universe, the TIE fighter is officially named after its twin ion engine propulsion system, but according to the video game Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader, it is at least partially named after something you wouldn't expect. The bow tie. But this is a bit weird because we never see a character wearing one. The real-life designer Colin Cantwell seemingly took no inspiration from the swanky fashion item, saying that his designs were 80% looks, 10% aerodynamics, 10% whimsy, and of the tie specifically that the design essentially came spontaneously. It took lots of deep thought, but I think I succeeded. It just came out of my mind. Instead, the rather out-of-place reference is likely an homage to George Lucas. According to Wikipedia, the Star Wars creator named the craft a TIE fighter because it made him think of bow ties. Draw a line from the top of each wing through the cockpit to the bottom of the other and you can clearly see the resemblance. And if you're wondering whether you can actually buy a TIE fighter bow tie, yes you can. Number 8. Qualifying to fly one is hard. Being part of the same organization as the bumbling stormtroopers means your reputation is going to take a hit, and quotes like this, "Let me describe an imp pilot for you, R2, lots of guts wrapped up in a little skill with no brain," courtesy of Kate Skywalker, certainly doesn't help things. In reality, TIE pilots are a far more dangerous proposition. Admittance to an Imperial Academy is conditional upon a rigorous screening and selection process. After this, the candidate will spend at least a year in flight school. The training is physically and mentally demanding, involving hundreds of hours of flight drills and harsh psychological conditioning, with pilots being stripped of their names, assigned a number, and indoctrinated to put the mission first even at the cost of their own lives. To make the challenge tougher, trainee pilots are assigned to actual combat posts. The result is an extremely high rate of attrition, with the weak and unsuitable being ruthlessly weeded out. Not surprisingly, the pass rate is only around 10%, and even then, a graduate must still earn a recommendation in order to enter the Starfighter Corps. And you thought your exams were tough. Number 7. It is fitted with an ejector seat. Ejecting in space is akin to ejecting in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. You're a pinprick in a vast sea of nothing, the environment will leach heat out of you at a terrifying rate, and you've got precious little to subsist on. Which is why most TIE fighter pilots opt to ride their stricken craft to a swift end. Even so, an ejection system is fitted, proving that the Empire did not consider their pilots to be completely expendable. Unlike the X-Wing, which explosively separates the cockpit from the rest of the craft, thus producing an escape capsule of sorts, the TIE fighter utilizes a system that would be familiar to any modern fighter pilot. The TIE pilot is strapped to a seat fitted with single-use, high-thrust ion engines. Activated manually or automatically, the ejection sequence first jettisons the cockpit hatch, then lights the engines, launching the pilot clear. As a fascinating aside, it is claimed that during the asteroid chase sequence in The Empire Strikes Back, we actually see pilots ejecting, although whether this is wreckage or an actual pilot is a debate only George Lucas would be able to settle. Number 6. The engine exhaust nozzle is not where you think it is. The technology of ion propulsion is the most common form of sublight propulsion in the Star Wars universe, fitted to everything from the Death Star to the Millennium Falcon to the X-Wing. The TIE Fighter utilizes a configuration of two engines functioning as part of a single system, collectively the twin ion engine. The name, however, can be confusing. Most fans would assume that the black hexagonal shape at the rear of the central pod is the nozzle, and it is here where the exhaust is expelled. But they would be justifiably puzzled by the fact that, unlike all of the Star Wars engines, there is no visible glow. That is because what you are looking at is not the engine nozzle but an exhaust neutralizer grid. The lore is limited on what this actually does. Instead, the two glowing red points to either side, easily confused for navigation or formation lights, are in fact the nozzles you're looking for. Dinky as they appear, combine them with a lightweight frame and an advanced engine design, and these are what give the TIE Fighter its impressive speed. Now I want to know from you, which is your favourite spaceship in all of Star Wars? And don't be saying the Millennium Falcon, that's too obvious, think a little bit more outside of the box. Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're there, make sure you give us a like and a subscribe. Alright, and now back to the TIE Fighter. Number 5. It has woeful aerodynamics. For the most part, you would think that the TIE Fighter, though not the sleekest thing to grace the silver screen, is reasonably streamlined. It's certainly better than a flying brick, right? Well, not really. In 2018, a group of pop culture detectives decided to put its aerodynamic efficiency to the test, using the Autodesk Flow Design Virtual Wind Tunnel software. That is a thing. The result was abysmal. The TIE Fighter was found to have a drag coefficient of 0.98, a figure indeed only slightly better than that of the aforementioned chunk of masonry. Of the other TIEs tested, the TIE Striker performed the best with a 0.48, which is not bad, but still handily beaten by your average golf ball. To put these numbers into context, the Vietnam-era F-4E Phantom Fighter aircraft scored a silky smooth 0.02. It was argued that aerodynamic efficiency plays no role in space and that deflector shields can be used to create a sleeker flight profile. But there is no denying that even for Star Wars technology, physics is still a thing, which is why, number 4, it is slower than an F22 Raptor. From Independence Day to Oblivion, the trope of Earth's forces being utterly steamrolled by invading aliens is as old as science fiction itself. So, if we were to race Earth's premier air superiority fighter, the F-22 Raptor, against a TIE fighter, you'd assume the result would be a foregone conclusion, right? Well, not exactly. According to lore, the TIE Fighter's maximum atmospheric speed is 1,200 km per hour, which is 745 miles per hour. The F-22's top speed is classified, but test pilots have confirmed reaching a speed of Mach 1.7 at altitude while in supercruise, a figure that roughly translates to 2,099 km per hour, which is 1,304 miles per hour. Keep the race fair and allow the F-22 to climb to altitude, and Earth's champion will win without breaking a sweat. Tag in the legendary SR-71 Blackbird and things get downright embarrassing. The SR-71 boasted a maximum speed clocking in at a blistering 3,540 km per hour, which is 2,199 miles per hour. That is 3 times faster than the TIE Fighter, and near twice as fast as even the quickest of the TIE line, the TIE Silencer, which has a maximum speed of 1,850 km per hour, which is 1,043 miles per hour. Score 1 for the good old blue marble. Number 3. George Lucas wanted it to be maroon. If you ever wondered whether you were imagining things and A New Hope's TIE fighters really were whiter than the notable blue of The Empire Strikes Back, then rest easy. The former were indeed a different colour. Lucas preferred the blue colour scheme, but blue models tended to turn invisible when filmed against a blue screen background, and it was this technical limitation that forced the use of the light grey. For the subsequent films, dark grey models were used and the blue tint was added in post-production. But blue was, according to one Star Wars model maker, not Lucas's first choice. Instead, he wanted the TIE fighters to be maroon, a mix of red and brown. The idea was to distinguish the TIE fighter from the standard Imperial grey, but the problem was that while maroon did not disappear against a blue screen, the colour did blend too quickly into the black background of space, rendering the fighter invisible at a distance. Assuming the story is true, Lucas might have eventually got his way in the form of the Galactic Republic's signature red. Number 2. Its cousin, the TIE Advanced, resembles a real galaxy. Star Wars might be nothing more than science fantasy, but in a perfect example of truth being stranger than fiction, there is a real-life galaxy that strongly resembles a TIE fighter, or more specifically, Darth Vader's TIE Advanced. Located 500 million light-years away from Earth in the constellation Cassiopeia lies the active galaxy TXS 0128 554. The galaxy is blasting out jets of material spanning 35 light-years across at nearly the speed of light. The jets billow out into immense lobes, and at the right frequency, in this case 6.6 GHz, it is these that produce the familiar outline. Professor of Physics Matthew Lister, once again proving that many an academic is a closet nerd, recalled, "The first time I saw the results, I immediately thought it looked like Darth Vader's TIE fighter spacecraft from Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope." TXS 0128 554 joins Saturn's moon Mimas, which is a dead ringer for the Death Star, and a Jabba the Hutt-shaped rock on Mars, as a little bit of Star Wars found in our own universe. Number 1. It is a better dogfighter than the X-Wing. Over the years, the TIE fighter has got a bit of a raw deal. With the X-Wing being the poster boy of Star Wars spacecraft, it has come to be known as the apex fighter of the original trilogy, relegating its opposite number to the position of cheap as chips piece of mass-produced cannon fodder. Which is rather unfair, because the TIE fighter's combat debut was anything but poor. Rewatch A New Hope's climactic battle, and you'll notice that not once is the X-Wing able to outmaneuver a TIE fighter. In fact, without a fellow rebel pilot to shoot it off, having one on your 6 is as good as a death sentence. And worse, the X-Wing is slow. Wikipedia states its maximum sublight speed as 100 mglt, a maximum speed it shares with the TIE fighter. But despite Luke's trench run being made at quote full throttle, Darth Vader's TIE Advanced, leading to TIE fighters, was easily able to reel him in. Then consider that the supposedly rugged X-Wing is as easily destroyed and far from being cannon fodder. The TIE fighter is a demonstrably better fighter. Time to give the devil its due.